When authors do battle, they do it with words. They throw a story back and forth, each trying to write the other into a corner. The results can be terrifying, or they can be legendary. The challenger, representing the villain this week, is
Simon Canton. No one can be as silly as me. Chance doesn't stand a chance.
And the defender, representing the hero, is
Hi, I'm John Stanton, author of The Blank Slate Boarding House for Creatives and Luano's Luckiest Day. I'm here at the Black Dog Cafe in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is hosting St. Paul's Winter Carnival.
Defender. Choose your genre.
The genre is erotic memoir. Just kidding. Surreal. Urban fairy tale.
Challenger. Choose the hero.
The hero is Tommy McDougall. He's a 6-year-old orphan who's living with foster parents along with 6 other children. Tommy is extremely shy and hasn't spoken since his parents' deaths in a polar bear attack.
Defender. Choose the time period.
The time is now. Tommy's parents, while working on the polar expedition team drilling ice samples, released a magical race of sentient snowflakes.
Challenger. Choose the villain.
The villain is John Blight, a snowman composed of 1,000,000 sentient flakes of snow. They have joined in a hive mind, making Blight smarter than any human. Blight can throw snowballs made of his own body, which will cling to any victim, and try to bind their arms and legs together by turning to ice.
Defender. What special skill does the hero have?
Tommy McDougall has noticed that when he is sad and afraid, his body gets very, very cold. Some nights in his foster home, he feels as cold as the frozen dinners his foster mother serves the children. But when he remembers being with his parents, his heart warms and his fingers and toes warm, and soon every part of him feels warm. It is love that makes Tommy warm, and he can imagine his parents embracing him, surrounding him with their love.
Challenger. What's happening at the start of our story?
It's been snowing for 10 days. Tommy's foster mother, Kathy, told him that it was something called a polar vortex. Tommy sneaked down one night when the news was on, though, and saw how panicked the Prime Minister was. They showed footage of an entire town covered in snow. The army was trying to clear the massive drifts, but the snow didn't seem to want to go. Every time they shoveled some of it up, it just drizzled back down again. Tommy is playing in his room when his foster brother Kenny runs in. "Come on, Tommy, we're going sledding," Kenny says. Tommy knew they didn't want him along just for fun. They wanted to make him pull their sleds. Then when they got there, they would ignore him completely. "All right, Kenny," Tommy says. It wasn't far to the nearest hill. It only took them 10 minutes to walk there. Tommy got tired pulling the sleds. He was only 6 and not that strong yet. "Okay, give me my sled, Tommy," Kenny says. "Kenny, can I have a go?" Tommy asks. "Don't be silly, Tommy," Kenny says. He takes the string from the sled from Tommy's hand and pulls it to the top of the hill. Tommy's other foster brothers and sister take their own sleds and walk up too. Tommy finds his usual spot beside an old oak tree and leans in it to watch. Kenny pushes off from the top of the hill, a smile on his face. The smile turns to horror, though, when the snow parts in front of him. He slides onto grass. The snow rises on both sides of Kenny and falls over him. Kenny disappears from view. The other children scream, drop their sleds, and run. Tommy doesn't move, though. He stands staring at the pile of snow where Kenny was. After a few seconds, something rises to the top of the snow. Kenny is bound by rings of ice around his legs and arms. From out of the sky, something flies down and lands with a whoomp close to Tommy. Tommy turns with wide eyes and stares into the face of a living snowman.
It is an awful face, quite unlike the smiling faces of talking snowmen in top hats and scarves that one typically sees in jolly holiday television programs. Tommy expects to see 2 lumps of coal for eyes, but instead, moist, bulbous orbs form entirely of snow glare at him. Where Tommy expects to see a carrot nose, there is only a severe beak that reminds him of his nasty stepmother. Perhaps worst of all were the snowman's arms. Instead of 2 tree branches poking from a round ball of snow, 6 white tentacles slashed the air, sending slivers of ice very near to his face. Tommy is no fool. Even his cruel foster parents, who care for Tommy even less than they care for painful dental work, often comment that Tommy is no fool as far as 6-year-old orphans go. And being very unfoolish, Tommy runs like mad away from the snowman. There is one thing that angers a snowman even more than being tricked into a tanning salon membership, and that is the sight of a little boy running away. Bellowing in a blast of icy wind, the snowman roars, his tentacles one by one scooping snow from the top of the hill and flinging the hard snow pedos in a mind-numbing volley directly at poor Tommy's fleeing little form. Fortunately, or unfortunately, as it's too early in this ghastly tale to say for certain, Tommy stumbles just as the first missile is about to knock his woolen cap from his head. Head over end, Tommy tumbles down the hill. He rolls faster and faster, becoming a blur of white as his body becomes one large rolling snowball. The snowman's relentless snowpedos found their mark, but they ricochet harmlessly from Tommy's new protective layer of snow.
The snowman roars, "Take the other boy back to the North Pole. I'll deal with this one." The snow spirals around and around Kenny. Slowly, struggling, Kenny rises off the ground and up into the sky. Tommy keeps rolling inside his snowball, unable to see where he's going. He's completely unable to see the tree he's rolling straight towards at full speed, so he doesn't know to protect his head when he hits it. Tommy's head ricochets off the tree trunk with an audible knock. Tommy is dizzy from the impact and sits in the snow, trying to recover. The snowman jumps into the air and lands in front of Tommy. This time, Tommy can't avoid the ice he shoots from his tentacles. It wraps around Tommy until his arms and legs are pinned together. "You'd better be worth all this trouble," the snowman says. "Who are you?" Tommy asks. "John Blight," the snowman says. "Your new master." Blight leans down and gathers Tommy up into his tentacles. Tommy shivers. Blight's body is cold. With a grunt, Blight launches himself into the air. The wind rushing around Tommy's face as they fly gets colder and colder. "I saw a cartoon with a boy and a flying snowman, but it wasn't like this," Tommy says. In minutes they're flying towards a giant vortex. Blight zooms straight through it. He lands on the ground and drops Tommy. The bands of ice fall from Tommy's arms and legs. He looks up and sees hundreds of children, all standing in a hot cave. Tommy sits up and sees flames through a hole in the wall. "What is this place?" "Hell," Kenny says from nearby.
Tommy is shocked. "Kenny!" he yells, raising an accusing finger at his foster brother. "You swore!" Kenny and Tommy aren't supposed to use words like hell. Only their awful foster parents can use those kinds of words, usually directed at something Tommy has done wrong, like smiling to himself or humming a happy tune. "It's not swearing," Kenny retorts. "It's what this place is called, and you'll find out soon enough what I mean." "If that boy gives you even an ounce of trouble," John Blight growls, "you let me know, and I'll cool off his hot temper." "You won't get any trouble from him, sir," Kenny assures the snowman. "I know how to deal with his kind." "Good lad," the snowman replies. "I'm off to the St. Paul Winter Carnival to make a cameo appearance, but I'll check in on you later." The snowman indicates Tommy with the tips of his flailing tentacles. "You better do as you're told, or else it will get very cold, icy even." With a roar of laughter, he launches himself upward and out of sight. Kenny tosses a pair of black and white striped chef pants and a filthy stained button-up smock at Tommy. "Put those on. We're going to get you started right away." Tommy simply blinks at his foster brother, who stands, arms crossed, his face fierce in the reflection of leaping flames coming from the walls around them. "Why aren't you afraid, Kenny?" "Afraid?" Kenny laughs. "This is my favorite place in the world. 2 15-minute breaks and an employee discount on meals." "You mean You've been here before? Sure. While you're off learning how to count and read, I'm here in the real world making a living. In the past 3 months, I've been promoted twice. Now I'm the half-shift co-supervisor. But Mr. Blight says if I keep bringing him little brats like you, I'll become the assistant kitchen staff scheduler in no time. Tommy realizes that Kenny is not just his bullying foster brother, but is part of a large-scale human trafficking operation, international in nature judging from the multilingual crying of the terrified children around them. Why do you do it? Tommy asks. Don't judge me with your little 6-year-old pig eyes. We provide an important service here at the Chubby Buffet. People want to eat all they can, and we take their money for it. Kenny yells at a child no bigger than Tommy, who struggles under the weight of a bin crammed full of plates and half-eaten food, dripping sauces all over the already slick floor. Amy, if you break one more plate, you'll end up being served in a meatloaf next to a pile of reconstituted flake spuds. You understand? Amy nods in terror and scuttles away toward a power washer spraying scalding water. It's better here than the old Foster family gig, Kenny says, returning his attention to Tommy. Well, for me it's better. He leans close to Tommy's scared little face. For you, it will be much, much worse. Now get dressed. Tommy hurries into the outfit, which smells like grease and is smeared with all sorts of unknown items now crusted in molding. Kenny leads him through a black door marked Kitchen Staff Only. You're going to be gutting cod with Felipe and Arnaud. You'll like them. They're almost as stupid as you are. But I don't want to gut cod, Tommy wails. And even though he wills himself against crying, the tears come on their own, turning to steam in the blistering heat of large commercial ovens and deep fryers. He would rather be back with his miserable foster parents detailing the inside of their Hummer, or even towing Kenny up the snowy hill on a sled, than gutting cod as a slave in the Chubby Buffet. Don't want to gut cod? Kenny was enraged. How do you expect to improve yourself then? You'll never advance even to onion peeling with that kind of attitude, Tommy. Here. Kenny presses a plastic spoon into Tommy's small hand. Obviously, we can't give you a proper knife. You never hear about an armed spoon rebellion, now do you? With a heave of his boot, Kenny kicks Tommy toward a pile of writhing silvery fish who gasp their last as 2 other little boys jab at them with plastic spoons.
John Blight rockets through the air, over the burning red landscape and sulphur volcanoes. Every dozen kilometers or so, he has to swerve to avoid a grey office building. After half an hour, he spots the St. Paul's Winter Carnival ahead. All of the adults from Earth are being paraded past an adoring crowd of flompodomps. The flompodomps look like baby elephants, but instead of trunks, they have 8 spiked tentacles. A man walks too near to the crowd, and the tentacles lash out to wrap around him. Screaming, the man disappears into the mass of tentacles. Blight shudders. He might be cold, but he isn't heartless. He lands beside his chief assistant, a large man in a red suit with a white beard. 2 snapping pincers extend from halfway down his trousers, clacking in the hot air. Sammy Claus, we need to get this lot into the freezer. There are quotas to fill here. Sammy Claus nods. Yes, Chief, we're moving them as fast as we can, but the flompodomps want to get a good look at them on the way past. Blight looks up at the assembled flompodomps. They're salivating as they watch the marching humans. I'll be glad when this is over, Blight says. There's a planet out there with my name on it. The humans call it Neptune. It's deliciously cold. Why do we even need the flompodomps? Sam asks. Why can't we just take what we want? Blight slaps the back of Sam's head with his cold tentacle. Without the flompodomps, the portal would close and we'd be stuck here forever. What do you think it's like for a snowman in a baking atmosphere? It's torture, that's what it is. Can't you just stay on the other side? Not with the portal like it is. It needs to be permanent. 2 more days and it will be. We're in sight of the end, Sam. Then we can escape this place into the other universe. I really want to see my family, Sam says. You will. You'll get to see all 6,053 of them again. Once the portal is permanent, the flight to Sirius C will only take a few minutes. Tommy pokes at a fish with his spoon. The fish screams and tries to flop away from him. Please don't hurt me. Hey, you can talk, Tommy says. We can all talk, the fish chorus. I don't want to kill a fish that can talk, Tommy says. A small dark-skinned boy grabs Tommy's elbow. Do it, or you get demoted. You don't want to be demoted. We can help you, the fish by Tommy says. We know the way back to Earth. Don't listen to them, the boy says. He picks up the fish and pokes at it with his spoon.
Ouch, the fish yelps. Hey, let's all just calm down and work this out. We're all friends here. We've had some good times, right, Arnaud? Remember that time you called me a smelly fish and then tried gutting me with a plastic spoon? And Tommy, is it? Remember that time you turned up and discovered fish could talk? Tommy nods. Of course, that was only a minute ago. The talking fish gets a misty look in his eye. Ah, but it seems so much longer, Tommy. Tell you what, good friends like us shouldn't go around poking at each other with spoons. What do you say we get out of here? Where would we go? Tommy asks. I know a fabulous party going on right now, the cod says. Each of you would be welcome guests, very welcome indeed. Dump, dump, dum, rings another cod from the two-gut pile, adding an ominous note that shoots right over the heads of the 6-year-old child slave labor kitchen staff. Tommy weighs his options only briefly. The thought of a party, or any place for that matter, where he was welcome certainly appeals to him, and even his new co-worker Arnaud, spoon still poised to jab at the cod, pauses to consider. All you need to do is pat my head 3 times, the cod explains. And then there's music and laughter and candy, Arnaud suggests. Yes, and candy shaped like worms. I particularly like those candy worms. That's why I'm so fat. The other cod interrupts him. You're not fat. You just have unusually small gills. It's an optical illusion that makes you look fat. You are too kind, Bertrand. But the truth is, I have been putting on the pounds ever since the holidays rolled around. I couldn't even swim away from the fisherman's net in time. I just felt so bloated. And you so bravely came to try to save me. And look at us now, Bertrand, lying about on a butcher's block about to be gutted by children who aren't even authorized to work in the North Pole. I am so authorized, Arnaud insists, his face growing red. Did you file the proper forms? The F-7B and the like? I think so, Arnaud sputters. You'll want to be certain, the cod announces. After all, it'd be a shame to lose your seniority in the cod-gutting crew based on some technical glitch, like an overlooked signature. But there's no need to worry, Arnaud. It just so happens that the paperwork is stored at the party we're going to. Relief washes over Arnaud's face, and he drops his spoon as the cod continues. And Tommy, good news for you. Your parents will be there too. Won't you be glad to see them again? Tommy would be very glad indeed to see his parents again, but the letter he'd received from the Polar Expedition Company Ltd. explained his mother and father had been killed by being sucked into some kind of polar vortex, which he assumes is some type of Swedish snowblower. Tommy's mind suddenly recalls something unusual about the letter. A small detail niggles at him. He couldn't read. He couldn't read Dickens. He couldn't read towaway zone signs. And he certainly couldn't read letters from multinational polar exploration companies. The letter had been read to him by his nasty foster mother. Could it be that she lied about his parents' deaths in order to collect a social services check by taking on Tommy as another foster child? It seems as likely a scenario as magical fish talking who can transport Tommy and Arnaud to a big party where the paperwork for the chubby buffet is stored. Let's go, Tommy determines, and he pats the cod on the head 3 times. 1, 2, and on the 3rd pat of the cod's head, the sounds of other terrified children, their work outfits splattered with canned mystery gravies from Guam and East Timor, began to fade away. The horrible grease-coated walls melt away, and Tommy and Arnaud find themselves shooting upwards into a swirling energy portal that materializes overhead. Their little bodies hurtle upward and onward, twisting in pitch blackness, until they emerge from a hat held by a statue of F. Scott Fitzgerald, another writer whom Tommy has not read, to a scene startlingly different from the hellish kitchen that they had just been in. A herd of what he could only think of was like baby elephants, with 8 spiked tentacles for trunks, cheer as massive columns of people pass before them. Arnaud points to a banner stretching across the park they stood in. "Look, it says this is the Winter Carnival." The falling snow and blasts of frigid wind make Tommy shiver. "At least they've got good weather for it." Arnaud grabs Tommy by the arm. "I think we're in trouble, Tommy. This is the kind of weather that John Blight enjoys. He might fire us." Tommy remembers what John Blight had said before leaping from the kitchen. Off to the St. Paul Winter Carnival to make a cameo appearance. Just then Tommy feels someone, or something, tapping him on the shoulder.
Tommy turns around. He stares into the face of a tired-looking woman. "Mum?" The woman gathers Tommy into her arms. "Tommy, I never thought I'd see you again. What are you doing here?" "I was kidnapped by a snowman called John Blight and put to work in a horrible kitchen." "Why are you holding a fish?" Tommy's mum asks. "He brought me here. He said it was a party." "What's going on over there?" a voice shouts. Tommy's mother gathers him under her coat and hustles him along. Tommy catches a glance at the man who'd shouted before he disappears out of view. The man grabs Arnaud. He looks like Santa. Tommy looks ahead of them. There's a giant door leading into a warehouse. Tommy can see coils of cold mist coming from the door. "Are we going in there?" Tommy asks. "We have to, Tommy. It'll be all right. I'll think of something," his mother says. They march along with the others, through the door and into the warehouse. The others who had entered ahead of them are milling around. There doesn't seem to be any way out. Tommy looks back at the door they'd come through and sees it swing closed. "Are we trapped?" "I'm sorry, Tommy," the cod in his hand says. "This wasn't the party I was expecting." The temperature in the room begins to drop. Tommy's mother hugs him close. Tommy can see her breath steaming out into the air around them. "Can't I just pat your head again?" Tommy asks the cod. "I'm afraid not," the cod says. "The only places I can teleport between are the kitchens and here. Plus, I think I'm about to die." The cod in Tommy's hands goes limp. He stares at it for a moment and then drops it on the frosted ground. The people around them have gone very still. Tommy sees a few shivering, but some of them have gone blue and aren't moving anymore.
Tommy remembers a time with his mother and father. It was during the winter and nearly as cold as the temperature was in the warehouse. But they hadn't minded it. They'd been building a snowman. Not the sort of snowman with tentacles who uses unauthorized child labor and has a plan to eliminate the human race, but the other kind with the sticks for arms, who mostly stands around looking mildly amused until he melts away. His father taught him to build a fort made out of snow, and he and his mother had laid on the ground and waved their arms and legs around to make snow angels. Remembering this causes Tommy's heart to pump a warm rush of blood through his veins. He feels a warmth spread from head to toe, and he smiles as he grips his mother's hand. She can feel his warmth, too. "What are you thinking about?" his mother asks, and he tells her of his happy memory, and she recalls it, too. "That's very good, Tommy. You're warming up, and you're helping me warm up, too," she says. Tommy's mother rushes Tommy over to a shivering man encrusted in ice. It was Tommy's father. "Quick, Tommy, hold your father's hand and tell him your story." Slowly, as Tommy speaks, the ice melts away from his father's eyelashes and nostrils. A rosy glow blooms on his father's cheeks. The people around Tommy and his parents warm too, as they think of their own happy memories. Soon, laughter erupts among them. Someone breaks out a harmonica, and they all sing a chorus of La Marseillaise while munching on brie and passing around a jug of Coteron. Maybe it is the wine or the thought of pre-war France, but Tommy hasn't been so happy in all of his life. His father musses his hair and tells him how proud he is of his son. "Let's go home and have some nice hot cocoa," Tommy's mother says. "Not so fast!" It was John Blight, and the man in red who looked like Santa except for the clacking pincers. They dangle Arnaud over a vat of molten plastic. "One more move from any of you," the snowman warns, "and we'll turn this boy into any number of useful objects molded from plastic."
There's only one way those flompadumps are going to keep that portal open, and that's by me keeping them readily supplied with human popsicles, John Blight roars. Whatever you're doing to keep this place so warm, stop it right now. Or what? Tommy shouts. I already said I'll turn this boy into small fast food toys, the kind that break apart after a minute and present a serious choking hazard, Blight says. At least make me into something useful, Arnaud says. If I cool this place down, then you'll kill us anyway, Tommy says. You're not giving us an upside. Sam Niclaus walks forward, a warm smile on his face. Now then, little boy, what do you want us to do? Take us back to the portal, let us through it, and close it, Tommy says. Sam Niclaus snatches Tommy from his mother and runs back. You gave yourself away, kid. You told us it was you warming this place up. Now how are you doing it? Tommy feels scared and helpless. He feels the temperature around him drop. He can't see any way out of the predicament. They're a long way from the portal, with Flompadumps, Sam Niclaus and John Blight between them and it. How can he possibly save the day?
Suddenly Tommy's mother shouts, "Please, Mr. Blight, let him sing one last song for us before you are victorious and all of us become Flompadump food." John Blight is no supporter of the arts. The last musical performance he'd been to was a One Direction concert where he'd snow-pedoed the entire front row of screaming young girls who were all like, OMG, trying to catch a drop of sweat from Harry Styles. Sam Niclaus, however, loved singing and had once been part of a barbershop quartet called the Four Sams. Their second album, The Four Sams Ham It Up, got loads of airtime in retirement centers around the world. Unfortunately, the group took on another Sam, and Sam Niclaus was asked to leave because, after all, it was a barbershop quartet, not a quintet. Sam Niclaus persuades John Blight to let Tommy sing. "We can judge him like on those talent shows on television," Sam Niclaus explains. "I'll be the slightly medicated judge who loves everything everyone does and cries during falsetto performances, and you get to be the nasty judge who everyone hates, and then you freeze them all." "Oh, that does sound quite nice," John Blight agrees. "And instead of everyone voting for their favorite performer on their mobile phones, they all get eaten by Flompadumps instead." Tommy doesn't understand why his mother wants him to sing, nor can he think of a single song that would be appropriate for the occasion. Wheels on the Bus? Muffin Man? His mother suggests a song for him. "Sing the Snowflake song, Tommy." The warehouse quiets, except for the bubbling splatter of molten plastic awaiting Arnaud, and then Tommy begins to sing. "A snowflake is an aggregated collection of ice crystals, super cool little droplets in a cloud. But one thing about snowflakes that most people know is each one is different and stands out in a crowd." At that moment, John Blight feels something strange happening in his body, which is itself merely composed of millions of snowflakes, each one different from the others. Just as no two snowflakes are exactly alike, not every snowflake thinks the same thing, unless they have been duped by John Blight's cable news network. One by one, the snowflakes begin to pull their thoughts from the hive mind that held John Blight together. In a puff of air, John Blight disappears, and it begins snowing inside the warehouse. Sam Niclaus is flabbergasted, and Arnaud uses this moment of confusion to kick him in the pincers, sending the misshapen Santa into molten plastic where he becomes a 24-count box of sippy straws. "Good work, boys," Tommy's father says. "Now we've got to deal with those Flompadumps." Tommy remembers how busy the chubby buffet was. People, and quite possibly Flompadumps, liked the idea of gorging themselves on as much food as possible. "Let's tell them that the molten plastic is part of the buffet, a human cheese soup. Once they eat the plastic, their stomachs will harden and their appetites will go away." Tommy's father agrees. That's just crazy enough that it might work, but just in case, you might want to think up a Flompadump song. The Flompadumps, with their tentacles for snouts, are led into the warehouse. Many of them request chopsticks, which apparently is a different sort of utensil on the Flompadump planet than it is at the takeaway shops on Earth. One by one, They sip the human cheese soup, and one by one the plastic hardens in their flompadump stomachs, and their appetites do go away, just as Tommy predicted, because they die. Tommy is chosen Boy King of the Earth, no backs, and his parents are made chief deputies of the anti-hive mind strike force, whose mission it is to prevent the likes of John Blight ever appearing again. The moral of the story is this: when you meet the John Blights of the world, and you feel your life is at stake, don't take on the villain as a whole. Take him on, snowflake by snowflake.
Who do you think won the battle? Vote for a winner in the comments below.